This is our qualifying times, and we started third. Our qualifying time was about 2.3 seconds slower than top 5 out of all qualified people. It wasn't as good as last races, but we chose the hardest tire. And our car seems okay. We had one of the best cars for this race. We dropped a few places off the grid, but this happens quite often since our driver is average. Surprisingly, we dropped down to 13th after a few more laps. We can see some people pitting quite early and they're doing more than 3 stops. There's a 20-second gap between us and Andriano, who we need to beat in the point standings to promote. That's quite a big gap, and it's not looking all that good. I highlighted a few of the drivers who are the top performers. If we look at the best lap time, we are 18.6 seconds, and some of the best drivers are doing 17.3 and 17.6 and 17.0. So we're only about 1 to 1.5 seconds slower. But if we look at the end of the race, our best lap time was only 18.1, and all of the other people has progressed to 16.5 and 15.3. So our car was supposed to go quicker and quicker throughout the stint because we changed the setup to have the fastest pace at mid-end race. But something went wrong. I'm not sure what went wrong. That's why our car didn't go faster, and it went slower and slower throughout the race, and we only managed to finish 8th. And we are so many places behind Andriano. However, we did use the 2 stops, and we know that's the optimum strategy, but we didn't seem to do that good. We could have potentially pushed the medium tires to a very high wear, but potentially we can get the tire puncture, or can choose to just do a 3 stop because we know this race is similar performance than 2 stops, and if we can use the softer tire, I think it's better, because with the hard tires, after we pit, we still have like 40% of tires left, and we're not utilizing the tires enough. So I think it's more important to actually choose the correct tire compound, which maximizes the wear down to about 15 or 10%, instead of just choosing the faster strategy, because we know for some tracks 2 or 3 stops have a same or similar time. Another highlight of this race is Tomase used the wrong strategy and he doesn't have enough fuel, and he made 10 pit stops. I think at this point he's just playing around. He's deliberately not putting the correct fuel and strategy, and because he knows he's not going to promote. He already done this quite a few races in a row. And if we look at Tsukas, he's a newcomer without a very fast car, but he was able to beat us this race. And he also actually did a pit stop at the end at lap 64, but he was still able to beat us. And we can see Tsukas has only done 3 races, but he able to beat us even with the wrong strategy and doing extra pit stop at the end. I think potentially because he's utilizing the tires and maximizing the wear. That's why he gained a lot of time. But our main problem for this race was still because our car wasn't able to go faster throughout the race and it became slower. That's why we lost. If we look at this race, we scored only 1 point and Andriano scored 6 points, and we had a 5-point larger gap to catch up. And if we calculate from the difference in points and the remaining 4 races, we need to gain about 6 points or so per race to beat Andriano and promote. So that's highly unlikely, and I'm so heartbroken that we're not going to promote this season. I'm so sad because we lost, and at the start of the season we felt so confident because last season we joined midway and everyone was so slow and we were able to beat them. But in that season it was potentially special because everyone is potentially deliberately being slow. But this season we have Marek, who deliberately reset his account from pro and joined us. And we have Bruno in second place, who has graduated from amateur with some experience in the bag. Sabrina is new, and Andriano is super experienced. That's why we're 3 experienced players made this season much more difficult. And we let our guard down by trying a driver that's a bit different, because we thought the season was going to be easy. A driver doesn't have enough concentration, and we deliberately choose someone with balanced stats, summon everything, because his concentration and experience stats are already quite good, but it's not good enough. So during this race we also increased the risk, so our driver pushed harder by 6 points or so, but then he still didn't make more than 1 mistake, so our driver is actually very good. The only problem is that we never were able to figure out he's able to push this hard and not make more than 2 or 3 mistakes. Otherwise we could have dominated the season. And we can see our lap times, it wasn't improving and it was getting slower and slower throughout the race. And our tire wear was about 35. The 2 main reasons I think why a car wasn't able to go faster throughout the race where it normally does is because a lot of our car parts has gone up to 90% wear, about 4 of them or so. So I think potentially this is one of the problem. And the next one is because our wing split wasn't perfect. It was somewhat close to optimum, and we didn't have that extra lap to do the wing split, and we tried to do an extra testing lap to do all the other setup. So I think it's better to have 4 sessions to do the wing split. We also used the wear compensation of 135, and we knew that 123% worked very well in the last few races. So I think potentially because also that the wear compensation was too high and the car was entirely out of the optimum range, that's why we lost a lot of time and our car wasn't able to go quicker at the end of the race. So this time I'm just going to use 95%. It's not going to be the fastest performance because we know that we want to be deliberately slow at the start of the race and not get stuck behind others. But obviously comes with the consequences that we will potentially become out of the optimum operating window, and then we lose a lot of time. So these 3 reasons are probably why we weren't able to go quicker in the race and we lost a lot of time. But I'm not sure the exact reason why we're so slow this race. You can see that I have a new driver now, and I fired my other driver because we're not going to promote anyway. There's no point in keeping a good driver, so I wanted to try someone with different stats, and I accidentally made a wrong offer with a very high salary. So I had to spend another 500k to make the offer, and then I was getting tired of doing all the calculations while I could have just made just 2 offers and still get a good driver. You can see our current driver has very high concentration and aggressiveness, so I want to see would this very high aggressiveness make our driver make more than 2 or 4 mistakes, and that would really affect the performance. Because if we can't put the clearance very high and drain the stamina a lot without making more than 2 to 4 mistakes, then we lose a lot of time. I was considering getting this driver with slightly less aggressiveness and be a bit more conservative, but then I changed my mind. And then this driver, there was also someone giving him an offer, but I think they pulled out last minute. So I would say this driver was someone I really want to try. And we know that with the high aggressiveness is the most important thing, and depending on how fast the driver goes. But we also need decent concentration so it doesn't make too much mistakes. The way I chose my driver this time, instead of just kind of looking and glancing and looking, oh, this stat is this and that, it seems good. It's kind of based on feel, not the exact numerical calculated answer. So we entered the driver stats in the calculator tool, and we assign points based on the stats. We can see that we give 2.5x less rating for talent and 3x less rating for experience, which is somewhat about right. And then for every weight gained, we lose 2.8 points compared to 75 kilograms, which is the average weight of the drivers. And then we assign 1.6x less points for the aggressiveness, and we add all of this and we sort it by the values. We assigned a very low ranking for talent because we know in rookie you need a lot of concentration, otherwise nothing else matters if he makes a lot of mistakes. That's why mostly we're looking at only the concentration and the aggressiveness. I use this GPRO Tools EU to get a list of all of the drivers, and it's free to use. And then we can sort by the stats, and then we can get a value of all of the drivers. Also chose to limit the salary and the fee to 1 million, and then we can copy all of this and paste it into an Excel spreadsheet, and then we can format it to make it look the same as the other cells, and then we can just sort based on the stats. This way we can get a very good driver every time, every season, and ensure a good experience. And we're not guessing at all because we are assigned calculated numerical values to each stat, and we know the optimum values. And you can see that this 88 kilogram driver will have similar performance to 62 kilograms. This attention needed with the sponsors. And we're just going to say our driver is liked by the fans. And one of the mistakes we made because this other sponsor pulled out, I think the main mistake is because we chose him with very low negotiations. I don't think we should ever choose someone with less than 2 bars, and we just wasted all of that time. If you look at our driver, he's virtually already there. There's nothing we need to train, and we're going to lose him for the next season because his overall is likely to be above 85. We can see that we need to replace quite a few parts, but the engine and gearbox is expensive and we don't have enough money. And I had a look at the upcoming tracks also. We're at A1 ring. It's not that much car performance dependent, but the last few ones is mostly handling based and a bit of acceleration and performance. And because our engine is at level 5, we can actually downgrade it down to level 3 and we won't lose much or any time, and we can upgrade the gearbox. Because it's not level 4, we're unable to actually downgrade anything without losing much performance. And then we're just going to upgrade the other parts. We can downgrade our engine to level 2, which is the minimum, and we can finish this race. And we can see that this race is not that much car performance dependent, but puts a very high wear on our engine. So it makes a lot of sense that we actually downgrade and save some money. And then we can still upgrade to level 3, which is very good and still fast enough for next races. But if we downgrade gearbox, we have to downgrade to level 1 to have enough wear, and we're gonna lose a lot of time. And we're going to replace all of these parts, and we're upgrading everything other than downgrading the engine. And we still have a little bit of money left. I think this is good money management. And we didn't change our driver, and we're actually targeting to be as competitive as possible. Then we'd potentially just replace with a level 3 engine, or I'm not sure, but maybe also upgrade something else and still downgrade the engine, because there's so much wear for this race and it doesn't really make sense to put like 4 million on just one race, 3 to 4 million, because that's like half the engine wear is already gone with one race. We can see our car performance dropped a bit, and we only have 45 power left, and the acceleration and handling is 56 or so. But then I had a look at the calculator tools, and next race, once we upgrade the engine to level 3, then everything will look quite balanced and good. And losing just about 10 points or so in power isn't really going to be losing much time in this track, because this is not much car performance based at all. The car performance based track has about 10 points or more in each car point. And surprisingly, we still have some of the fastest car, but previously everyone had 4 bars in the car level, and I think everyone is running out of money. So that's why, actually we still have 4 bars, but I think everyone is downgrading a bit because the engine wear is very high and everyone wants to save money. That's why we're still top players in the car performance. Another critical mistake we made as a choice in the early season is to have a bit more power and acceleration. but I never noticed that it'll take virtually near end season before we're able to upgrade the handling parts a bit more, and then the car performance will be balanced. Otherwise, you want to just have a balanced or a slightly handling based testing, because I know with this game, even if the track might show power and acceleration is mostly dependent and there's a little bit less on handling, the car handling is still very dependent and makes a huge difference in pace. And it's important to have a high handling points so it's the most efficient and you go faster even with tracks that are mostly power and acceleration. Surprisingly, out of our teammates, we still have the #1 fastest car and we have more money than them, and we changed our driver once and we did so much testing and upgraded facilities, which they haven't. This means we have very good money management, and I think potentially they are not using any calculator tools or they are not doing it efficiently. That's why they don't have money now and the car is slower than us. I had a look at this race which we're about to do. The optimum is either 2 or 3 pit stops, but it's on the lower side, 1.26, and we know the average of 1 pit is 1.24. So potentially we can do anything from 1 to 3 pit stops, but we need to make sure that we're wearing down our tires enough to about 20% or more, otherwise we're gonna lose time. And I also found this value by using a strategy we mentioned before. We just click on this race summary for the past results, and we didn't pay any money and we're not a GPRO supporter, but we're still able to view the past results of other drivers and we can see the correct strategy to use. But the funny thing is, while you can see the race summary for other drivers, you're not allowed to look at your own personal past results. So if I actually search season 106, then it says I'm not a supporter, I'm not allowed to look at my own past races. But you're able to look at other people's on the screen, just this brief basic version, so that's a bit funny. There isn't any rain in this race, so I like it. I don't really like all of the complication and the time you need to spend to calculate for a rain event. We're going to enter the track temperature into our own calculator tool to make sure where the calculator tool, this is sometimes not correct. And we know the average temperature is actually 33 degrees. Though we're not going to promote because we got rid of our driver for a new one to see if how much aggressiveness drivers can handle before they make too much mistakes. I'm actually very excited and happy about this race. Leave in the comment section below if you're also excited watching this video. But initially it was quite sad and I was depressed because we're not going to promote this season and we did so bad this race. And then I was looking for another driver to gain some experience and try new things because we know we're not going to win. And it took a bit of time to actually calculate all the stuff and find a driver. And I wasn't all that excited, but now after we got the driver and we're doing all of the fun part, I'm feeling excited and happy about this race. And I kind of already forgot that we're not going to promote anyways, and I don't have that feel anymore. We're going to choose the medium tire and do the 2 stops, and we have the max wear would be around 9 or 8% because we need to do an extra lap. One of them needs to be 25 and seems very comfortable as long as it's not less than 7 or 5%. Normally there wouldn't be much risk of tire puncture. Also had a look at the effect of aggressiveness and the tire wear before I picked this driver. and we can see it's only about 3% difference. It's not really a big deal if we actually dropped it from 170 to 50 aggressiveness. Otherwise, even if we pick the correct driver with very high aggressiveness, let's say for the next season, because if the tire wear is like ridiculous, it might go from 25 to just 12%, then we might not consider someone with too much aggressiveness. But because there's little to no difference in tire wear, it doesn't really matter. And we know aggressiveness is the most important thing to have for a driver to go fast. We also entered the fuel required for this race. While we might lose a bit of time by starting with 24 laps of fuel, it can prevent us from ever seeing 25 laps. Because if we start with 25 and we have the hard tire wear, our chances of getting a tire puncture would ruin our race. But then because we have 2 extra laps, it's relatively unlikely that we need to do 25 laps at the end, but we still have the good reliability. If things change and the calculation is off, we can still finish the race. So I want to do this because it's a bit more conservative and it's safer. Because we changed our driver, we also had to enter the new happy range of our driver, and we already did that. We're going to find the setup for this race. We can see that the wing, brakes and gear are 2 happy ranges off, but the others were fine, and we entered the calculated values. I've calculated the values, and we're going to find the wing split. We know the optimum setup is in between the lap 7 and 8, and I've already entered that into our car. We're going to do qualifying with the lowest risk like we normally do. .4 seconds off his best time isn't all that bad. I think our qualifying time is quite slow because our driver is heavy. I just calculated that our driver is about 22 kilograms heavier than our previous one. And if we entered 22 kilograms into our calculator tool and the lap time of this track, you can see that every lap will be about 0.73 seconds slower. And we can see our driver was one of the slowest of all of the qualified. We're going to start the race with 83 liters, 24 laps of fuel, and we're going to do boost laps, and then we entered the difference in temperature for compensating the car setup. Qualifying times are quite good and our driver didn't make too much mistakes. It's quite consistent for Q1 and Q2. But we're at the back of the pack for our qualifying times. We're about 4.75 seconds slower on average in Q1 and Q2 compared to top 5. But qualifying times doesn't matter much because we can see at the start of the season, even if we're about 1 or 2 seconds quicker than our competitors in Q2, in the race their lap time was actually much lower than their qualifying times and they went so much quicker. So hopefully if our driver is going to be able to do that, we're going to be able to finish very well in the race. qualifying times isn't all that much slower than our teammates, considering our driver is very heavy with 88 kilograms. We're also going to keep the high risk settings which we used for our previous driver. And we're going to make him do boost laps for the first 2 stints. And we entered the final race setup, also adding the car weight compensation. But I just forgot to actually enter this car weight from the calculator tool, and I just entered it. Our calculated fuel consumption values was actually incorrect because I actually forgot to update my calculator tool after I changed the car parts. And I've calculated that with the updated fuel values, we can do 23 laps or so with the start fuel we entered, but then we're going to have to enter more fuel for the next few stints. And we've updated our fuel values, and it means we're going to have to do 25 and 25 laps for the last 2 stints. For this race, we're going to lose about 0.73 seconds per lap because our driver is more heavy than our previous driver. So I think next time I might want to add a little bit more weighting to the driver weight calculation for choosing a driver, because with the cherry pick stats, it's probably every driver is going to have good stats and it's already there, so even a bit more in something is probably not going to help much. And potentially our time is a bit slow because potentially the talent stats is low, so I might want to add a little bit more talent weighting for the calculation. There was actually a few drivers with very high concentration and talent, but they didn't have any aggressiveness. While that would be a good pick for the start of the season, we're only looking at trying a new driver and gaining some experience and seeing what the stats do. And I just entered the final setup values, and even after updating the values to have the correct wear output, it's only about 3 points, 2 or 3 points difference in some of the setup, so it's not a huge difference.